Hi guys, and welcome back. In this video, we will be doing a deep dive into the Cyclone Aila case study. I have had requests to do some case study videos, and this is the first of a series that I'm creating to cover all the GCSE case studies. Please make sure that you're subscribed if you'd like to receive notification when they are uploaded. Also, let me know whether there's a particular case study you'd like me to cover that is not in the case study playlist. Okay, let's get started. So some countries are more vulnerable than others when it comes to hazards. Now, the main factor that determines how vulnerable a country is the wealth of that particular country. So some countries obviously are LIC, like Bangladesh is, which means a low-income country, and therefore they will not have a lot of money to be able to predict, to prepare or protect against hazards. Now, that would be opposed to a country that is wealthy. So if we are talking about the USA, for example, is a wealthy country and therefore is referred to as a HIC and has a huge capacity to predict, to prepare and protect against hazards. So Bangladesh is a lot more vulnerable. Now, vulnerable here means more likely to experience negative impacts when exposed to hazards. Okay, so what are the reasons why Bangladesh is vulnerable? One of the reasons is the population density of Bangladesh. Now, Bangladesh's land area is 60% that of the UK, but has 2.5 times more the population in the country. So in 2023, there were some statistics that showed that the UK's population was 68.35 million, while that of Bangladesh was 171.5 million. So Bangladesh is very densely populated. Now that makes them a lot more vulnerable because if there is a hazard that strikes an area, then it's likely to affect a lot more people because there are more people per square kilometer. And then the second reason why Bangladesh is vulnerable is the relief or topography of Bangladesh. Now, the relief here refers to the height of the land. So whether it's very highland, whether it's very upland, or whether it's lowland. And in the case of Bangladesh, the country is very low-lying. Now, if you look at the colors on the map here, they actually show that a lot of Bangladesh is below 10 meters above sea level, which means that if you get a storm surge as a result of a tropical cyclone or you get very heavy rains, then the water may not be able to drain away or will not be able to drain away from the area quickly enough, and therefore the area is going to be is more likely to get flooded. So that's a form of vulnerability. Okay, so the third reason why Bangladesh is vulnerable to tropical cyclones is its poverty. So Bangladesh ranks 61st amongst the world's poorest countries. And 24% of people live in extreme poverty, lacking basic necessities. Now, this obviously makes it difficult for them to prepare or even recover from tropical cyclones. So that's another form of vulnerability. Then the fourth vulnerability is the monsoon rains. Now, these are heavy rains that last from June to October every single year. And Bangladesh is also at the confluence of three rivers, which are the Ganges River, the Meghna River, and the Brahmaputra River. So if one of the rivers floods, one of these three rivers floods, then all of the others will also flood. And this means that the country is fighting hazards on two fronts, which are obviously cyclones and then extreme seasonal rainfall. So these are the four main reasons why Bangladesh is vulnerable to tropical cyclones. Now, on this particular slide, I have included an exemplar exam question here. And this here is a 4-marker. And the 4-marker is to explain two reasons that make Bangladesh vulnerable to tropical storms. Now, we will be answering these exemplar exam questions in a different video so that we can have enough time to cover the case study on its own first. This is a cyclone track map showing the path of Tropical Cyclone Aila. As you can see on the map, the path tells you the most affected area. And the path is shown by this arrow, this black arrow that is going right up this way, northwards. And the tropical cyclone started off as a tropical storm in the Bay of Bengal on the 24th of May 2009. Now, a tropical storm typically has wind speeds between 63 and 118 kilometers an hour. So this tropical storm reached southwest Bangladesh on the 25th of May. So this area here on the 25th of May 2009, reaching tropical cyclone speed status. Now that means that it reached speeds of over 120 kilometers an hour, because that is when a tropical storm is classified as a tropical cyclone, which is obviously the cyclone being a lot bigger. However, it did not remain at those speeds of 120 kilometers an hour. It actually tripled that speed, and it got to a peak of 360 kilometers an hour, obviously having the potential for a lot of devastation and damage to the areas that it was passing through. Then as it continued further north, it weakened over the sub-Himalayan West Bengal and eventually dissipated. Now, why is this kind of map important? So a cyclone track map will be important both before, during, and after the cyclone event. Now, how is it helpful before? So you're tracking this obviously using satellite imagery. And before a tropical storm, that kind of tracking is really important, because you'll be able to see what path the storm is likely, or the cyclone is likely to follow, and therefore you can prepare people and evacuate them, or you can prepare and evacuate people in good time so that they are not greatly impacted by the cyclone. And then during the event, if the cyclone is going over a really wide area, like this one did, because it went over India and then also into Bangladesh, then it's really important, because it can tracking the path can help you again move people away from its path. And obviously that kind of evacuation is going to reduce the number of fatalities that you're likely to get from the event. Then after the event, this kind of map would be really important, because tropical cyclones sometimes will tend to follow a similar path in the future, which means that countries can be able to prepare areas that they think would be vulnerable if a storm that was similar hit the area. So in terms of preparing, that would be really good information. Okay, so I've also put an exam question here, and the question says, figure 2 shows a GIS cyclone track map. Explain 2 ways maps such as this can help countries prepare for tropical cyclones. So we will be answering this question in a different video so that we can get on with the case study. So what were the primary hazards that were caused by Tropical Cyclone Aila? Primary hazards are those risks or dangers that happen directly as a result of a tropical cyclone. And in Aila's case, there were 3 main primary hazards. Now, the first one is heavy rainfall. And during this cyclone Aila, Bangladesh received 120 millimeters of rainfall within just a few hours. Now, considering that 80% of Bangladesh is below 10 meters above sea level, and that it's at the confluence of 3 rivers, this was too much water for the rivers to actually drain away within a short period of time, and this caused the level of water in Bangladesh to reach 4 meters in some areas. Now, putting the rainfall into context, 120 millimeters of rainfall is 20% of London's yearly rainfall. So that was quite a lot of rainfall to receive in just a couple of hours. Now, the second primary hazard we'll talk about here is a storm surge. And a storm surge is a rise in sea level caused by the tropical storm. And in Aila's case, the storm surge led to a bulge of water being pushed towards the coast by strong winds, and this also contributed to the widespread flooding that took place as a result of this cyclone. Then the third one that we'll be talking about in terms of primary hazards is strong winds. Now, Cyclone Aila's winds reached a peak of 360 kilometers an hour, as we had talked about in a previous slide. And being such a poor country, people's houses are not made from very strong or durable material. And this meant that the winds caused severe damage to people's homes, buildings, infrastructure, and crops. Now, obviously, people's lives and livestock as well were put in danger as a result of these strong winds. Now, we also have an exemplar exam question on this particular slide, and this particular question is an 8-mark question. And the question reads as follows. Evaluate the view that storm surges are the most devastating hazard of tropical cyclones. Okay, so I'm going to let you think about that question, but as I said earlier, we're going to be answering these questions in a separate video so that we can carry on with the case study. So what were the impacts of Cyclone Aila? Now, I have categorized them here under social and economic impacts, and then on the other side, we have environmental impacts. And the first social impact we shall talk about here is homelessness. So 750,000 people lost their homes, and they had to migrate from the regions where they lived. And 90% of them were from Bangladesh's lowest income groups. Now, this led to an increase in poverty and an even lower quality of life. And then the next social impact is that unfortunately 190 people died in this particular cyclone. Then the next one we'll look at here is that a large number of animals were lost and thousands of acres of crops were wiped out. Now, this obviously disrupted food security and income for farmers. So food security for the people that were relying on the crops for their sustenance, and then income for the ones that were relying on those crops to sell and make money. Then nearly 2,000 kilometers of road were either fully or partially destroyed. Now, that obviously is an economic impact because those roads have to be repaired. And apart from that, because trade normally takes place, using roads in a lot of cases, a lot of business and potential income was obviously lost. So that's an economic impact. Then we have 2,000 kilometers of the coastal embankments destroyed, which obviously is what led to extensive flooding. And those coastal embankments, again, would need to be repaired, and that costs money. So that is an economic impact. Then nearly 4 million people in total were affected. That again is a social impact, and the total cost of damage was $269.28 million US dollars, which is quite a significant or substantial amount of damage, especially for a country that is poor like Bangladesh. Then moving on to the environmental impacts, we are talking about the loss of animals, which meant that there was a loss of biogas because a lot of people in Bangladesh rely on their animals to produce biogas, which they use for heating and for cooking, but mostly for lighting and for cooking. Now, because they lost this way of getting energy, that meant that there was a lot more pressure on woodland in Bangladesh for a source of firewood. So a lot more woodland was cut down as a result, and that obviously is an environmental impact. Then the second environmental impact is contaminated water. Now, this water that was contaminated obviously led to waterborne diseases such as cholera and typhoid, and also there was an increase in malaria from mosquitoes due to a lot of stagnant water after the storm had begun to subside. Then lastly here we have another environmental impact, which is that 30 Bengal tigers drowned. Now these are an endangered species, and them drowning then is a big environmental impact, but can also be seen as an economic impact to Bangladesh because the Bengal tigers are obviously a tourist attraction for the country. So how does Bangladesh predict, prepare, and protect against cyclones? So due to the regularity of weather hazards, Bangladesh has used several approaches to predict, prepare, and protect against tropical cyclones. And the first prediction method here we are going to talk about is satellite technology. So satellite technology is a system launched into orbit around the Earth. Weather satellites have sensors to collect atmospheric and oceanic data. They gather information on cloud formations, temperature, wind speeds, and so on, providing a real-time view that helps predict and track the weather. However, this technology obviously is very expensive, and during Cyclone Aila, Bangladesh had to rely on images from satellites from other countries, and this was at a cost of $12 million every single year. Now, this obviously for a poor country like Bangladesh is very expensive. So in 2012, the government announced that they would spend $150 developing their own satellite, other than relying on images from the USA, China, and Japan. Now, obviously, in the long term, this obviously would be more cost effective because they have their own satellites and they don't have to necessarily pay that $12 million every year. And on 12th of May 2018, the Bangladesh Satellite 1 or BS1 was launched from the Kennedy Space Center in the USA. Now, the second method of prediction we are going to talk about here is weather forecasting. And this refers to predicting future weather conditions using satellite information, radar, ground stations, and weather balloons. This data is then analyzed using computer models to predict what the weather is going to be like. So these prediction methods are obviously very important because they help Bangladesh prepare for potential cyclones. This information obviously can then help evacuate people in good time and get them out of harm's way. So how does Bangladesh prepare for tropical cyclones? So they do so using warning and evacuation systems. Now, weather forecasts that we have talked about in the last slides were used to issue warnings on TV and radio, and this actually helped to lower the number of deaths that occurred during Cyclone Aila. As we saw, there were only 190 deaths, and considering the wind speeds, the storm surge, and the amount of rainfall that took place, that was not necessarily a very high number of deaths. However, these warning and evacuation systems are not always effective, and that's because few people in Bangladesh have a radio or TV in the rural areas, and half of the population do not own a phone. Now, that means that those kinds of people will be a lot harder to reach in terms of getting them to know about, in terms of warning them about the tropical cyclones and getting them out of harm's way. The government of Bangladesh also educates people on cyclone warning signals, and this is through meetings, posters, leaflets, films, and demonstrations to ensure that people are prepared for cyclones. Now, that basically means that they will be aware of what they need to do in order to keep themselves safe if a tropical cyclone event is to take place. Now, Bangladesh also has community-based evacuation where there are volunteers at the village level, and these help to guide people out of high-risk areas into shelters during tropical cyclones. Okay, then the third one here is about protection against tropical cyclones. So how does Bangladesh do that then? So they have cyclone shelters and flood defenses. Now, Bangladesh has invested a lot of money into cyclone shelters and coastal embankments. Now, this has reduced the number of deaths from cyclones. However, they still face some challenges because some people sometimes do not want to evacuate. And then there's also the challenge of transportation, getting people out of those high risk areas, and inadequate road infrastructure. So the road infrastructure, obviously, especially in the very remote and rural areas, is not as great, and therefore getting people out of there is very difficult. Then the last challenge that they face is climate change, which means that due to climate change, the regularity and the severity of tropical cyclones is becoming higher, and therefore they are more at risk. Okay, then lastly, here on this slide, we have some exemplar exam questions. Actually, it's just one exemplar exam question. This one is 8 marks, and it says assess the success of different methods of cyclone management in a named developing country. Now, again, we shall answer this in a different video so that we can get on with the case study. That brings us to the end of the Cyclone Aila case study. I hope that you have found this information useful. I have had requests for videos for various case studies and will be creating them as we go along. You can find them in the case study playlist section. There will also be a video where I answer the exam practice questions that were in this video. I will link it in the description once it's ready, and you will be able to find it in the case study or exam practice playlist. Also, do not hesitate to send me any questions or case study requests in the comment section below. All the best, and see you again soon.